depending on, I guess, where you are. It's lovely to see you all, and I'm glad you're able to join us. As you know, today's seminar is it's for parents with special needs, and we're all delighted to have the team with us. I'd like to introduce Lubna Jamam. Lubna is a former president of World Bank Family Network. She is also the current disability program coordinator for us. Thank you so much, Lubna, for all your efforts and putting it all together for all of us. We really appreciate it. So over to you.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today to this session. The Family Network Disability Program was created to support the World Bank Group families with children or parents with disabilities. Currently, we provide our members with informational seminars, but also we put in place a database of useful resources. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us at the email address disability@wbfn-global.org. If you have any question or you would like to have more information about our database, please feel free. I leave the floor to my fellow team members, Jeannette and Nelly, to present themselves.
Yes, good morning. My name is Nelly, and we are the co-founder of the disability group that was created almost 2 years ago to respond to parents. I'm myself a parent of disability with a child with a disability. So it was a good way to respond to any type of problems or any type of problems that parents are facing, such as the education, the health system, and how to find a good therapist. So it was a good way to help other parents living in that situation. So thank you very much.
Jeannette.
Yes, good morning. This is Jeannette Olegil, and I'm a former World Bank employee. I'm a mother of 2 children with disabilities. One has cerebral palsy, and the other one has mental illness. And I'm also a specialist in interdisciplinary disability. And I obtained my degree from CUNY University. And I'm also one of the ADA, Americans with Disability Act training coordinator nationwide. And I also participated in the discussion for the UN Convention on the Right of Persons with Disabilities. And while I was a World Bank employee, full-time employee, I advocated for persons with disabilities and for families of children with disabilities because of my own situation. So I pushed for the creation of this disability program within the World Bank Group Family Network. So I'm one of the founders. So this is a very good opportunity, and I thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jeannette. Sarah?
Yes. Sorry, I think there's some problem with my sound. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. I would like to now move on and introduce our speaker for today. We're so happy to have her. We have today with us Magui. Magui is actually a mindfulness coach and autism mom. She helps special needs parents to reduce their stress, increase their well-being, and conduct better with their loved ones. She is a certified transpersonal life coach by the Institute of Interpersonal Development and by the Academy of Strategic Coaching, Tony Robbins Method. Before becoming a mom, she worked for a series of international organizations, including the World Bank, on governance, human rights, and social development in several countries. Originally from Spain, she works in both English and Spanish. Thank you very much for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you, Lubna. Thank you for inviting me, and welcome to everyone. I am going to share my screen, so hopefully this works. Let me see. Yes. Okay, so can you all see that? Yes, can you see the screen? Yes, great. So today's session is about self-care for you, for the parents of any children with special needs. I like to use the term special needs, but I understand that you, obviously within the World Bank Family Network, you also use the term disability, and it refers to any additional support need that our kids may have, whether it's neurodiversity, autism, ADHD, Down syndrome, whether it's a mixture of neurodiversity or neurological differences and physical differences or physical disabilities. And the focus of this session is going to be on self-care, and I think it's quite important at this particular time. We are now 6 months into a situation where we've all been stuck at home, where our kids have had severe disruption to their services, whether therapeutic services, educational services, even to some extent medical services. So this session, today's session, is the main objective is to give you practical tools to avoid burnout and to manage stress and avoid it from becoming chronic stress in the current situation. So I'm going to talk about why self-care, why is important, and this may seem pretty obvious, but it's actually fundamental to understand why it's important and what do we mean by self-care. So what is it really? And then I'll go into the practicalities of how we actually establish a regular self-care routine or habit in our lives, which is one of the hardest things. I'll give you some very simple, what I call rescue mindfulness practices, and we will finish up with basically opening up for questions and hopefully having a discussion around some of these issues where you can share some of your difficulties. But before, I am going to invite you to breathe. I am a mindfulness teacher and coach, and I think it's very, very important in dealing with stress and dealing with fatigue to really understand how crucial it is to connect to our bodies, to connect to our breath, and use our breath as a very simple and very effective tool. So if you would like, I invite you to close your eyes, and if you're not sitting down, to sit down, and we are just going to arrive where we are, arrive here, and just take a couple of breaths together, conscious breaths. You don't have to change anything, just become aware of your breathing in and breathing out. And just feel your body as it breathes in and as it breathes out. And I'm going to invite you to just pay attention to how your face feels, whether there's any tension, whether your brow is maybe wrinkled, whether there's any tension in your jaw or in your temple area. And just notice it. You don't have to do anything about it. I'm also going to ask you to pay attention to your shoulders and just notice how they are, if they are tense, if they are a bit scrunched up. And maybe pay attention to your hands and just notice if they are, if you've got clenched fists or if they're relaxed, if they're open. Pay attention to your abdomen, and if you can, relax it. That will help with the breathing. It will help you to be able to take fuller breaths in and out. And then just pay attention to how it feels on your legs, on the back of your legs, to be sitting down, to feel the support of the chair or the sofa that you're sitting on. And finally, just very, very simply pay attention to your feet and ground your feet. Just make sure that your feet are touching the ground. And we'll just take a couple more breaths, breathing in and out. And again, breathing in and out. And now I invite you to open your eyes and let's get started. So, a very quick presentation. Sarah has very kindly presented me. I just wanted to let you know my name is Magui Moreno, and I'm a mindfulness coach for parents of special needs kids. But I am also a special needs mum myself. My son, called Adrian, is now 9 years old. He's about to turn 10, and he has a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, which he received shortly after turning 4 when we were living in the UK. I did work for the World Bank for 3 years. I met my husband here. He was working at the bank as well. He is British, I am Spanish, and we have lived in Africa for several years and back in the UK as well. We moved to the DC area 2 years ago. And although I started my coaching practice as a general mindfulness coach, about 2.5 years ago, I decided to specialize in supporting parents and carers of children with special needs. Because in my own journey as a special needs mom, I obviously was lucky to come across a lot of great professionals, therapists who were supporting my son and helping him to maximize his potential. But there was very little that I came across that was actually focused on supporting the parents. So that's where I kind of come in. That's my mission, to support parents to a more fulfilling, kinder and clearer parenting and life journey. So it's all about trying to suffer less stress, to enjoy a bit more well-being in our lives, and in order to connect better to our children, which is really the ultimate goal. So why self-care? And it may be obvious. It's kind of not hard to sell, right? But I really want to stress here and take a bit of time during this presentation to stress the importance of self-care, especially for special needs parents. We are, for the most part, waging a double daily battle. So on the one hand, to get services and support for our kids to realize their full potential. And that can sometimes be very, very difficult depending on a whole host of factors, including where you live and what kind of services are accessible where you live. But we're also waging sometimes a daily battle with our own feelings of helplessness, of frustration, sometimes our own grief, and often the isolation that comes from feeling misunderstood or feeling a little bit on our own when it comes to raising a special needs child. So it becomes even more important to take good care of ourselves. I think all parents need to have a self-care routine. We are doing an extremely important job raising children, raising the humans of, the adults of the future. But when our children have additional support needs, it's even more crucial. So you can't give what you don't have. And this is something that everybody understands. It's logical. You can't give what you don't have. If you are not in a good place yourself, if you are stressed chronically, if you are burnt out, if you have sleep issues, if you have anxiety, then that is going to overflow in your relations with your children. And our children oftentimes have additional emotional needs for reassurance and for safety, emotional safety. So it's very, very important that we do it for ourselves, but also for our children. And the issue of presence and attention and time, you either give it or you don't. So oftentimes we will say, I spend so much time with my child. I am constantly with them. Yes, but are you actually present? Are you actually paying attention when your child needs you? And it can be exhausting. And that is why we have to nourish ourselves. And we have to do that regularly. We have to do that daily. It's our responsibility. The parenting stakes are high. Nobody can do self-care for you. You have to do it for yourself. And the easiest way to get a handle on this really is to create a habit, to create a daily habit. The parenting stakes are high because as parents, we want to be the best version of ourselves for our kids. We truly do. And when our kids are in a more difficult position as they get older because of their differences, because of their special needs, we need to be there for them for much longer and in much more, substantive ways than other parents. So the stakes are high, both in terms of today, but also in terms of the future, whether it's medium term or long term. And we are modeling it for our kids. And this is also a very important point, because emotional self-awareness is a crucial life skill for ourselves, but also for our kids. And if our kids have communication issues or differences in how they socialize, that it really becomes a crucial skill, because a lot of the difficulties that our kids may have are around managing their own emotions. So in showing them that we can take care of ourselves and of others, and that it is not incompatible, we are showing them how important it is to take care of ourselves in order to take care of them, and how it is their responsibility to start taking care of themselves as well emotionally. So, it's a great sort of family learning opportunity, so to speak. But what is self-care? And here I really want to go beyond the activity. It's very, very important. I'm not sure if some of that is covered, but it's important to go beyond the activity. It's important to understand self-care as a mindset. It's a mindset. It is not what you do. It is where you do it from. It is about the intention you put into everything you do that you might class as self-care. So let me give you an example. A bubble bath, that's something that most of us would agree is self-care, giving yourself the opportunity to have a nice bubble bath, a nice relaxing bubble bath. But here's the difference. If you approach that as a bit of a, you start thinking about it and you say, oh, well, I am going to need 45 minutes and I need to run the water and I need to make sure it's not too cold and it's not too hot. And then where are my bath salts, and where are my products? And oh, I'm going to have to clean the bathtub afterwards because these bath salts always leave residue. And I'm sure my kids are going to interrupt me. And I don't actually have the time anymore. And maybe I should leave this for another time. That is not self-care. Even if you do end up having the bubble bath, that's not self-care. You have actually stressed yourself out about this bath. So that's not self-care. The activity may look the same as as what I'm going to tell you next, but the place where you're approaching it from is a place of obligation. I said I was going to do this and I have to do this, but you're also thinking about all the all the sort of minor annoyances around it. So in a way, your mental dialogue hasn't improved. It's still a bit of a chore. However, if you say, do a bubble bath and you acknowledge, yes, I probably will be interrupted. Yes, I might not actually be able to take it for as long as I would like to. I'm not going to clean up afterwards. Not today, not this evening. And I am just going to enjoy the feel of the water on my skin. And I'm going to enjoy the sensation of being immersed in warm water. And that's it. That is self-care. So again, the activity is the same, but how you've approached it is totally different. And so that is very, very important in terms of how we do self-care. Because the problem is that a lot of moms and dads end up seeing self-care as another to-do. It is not another to-do on your endless list, okay? This is very, very important. The crucial bit is that middle bit, is the reconnection to yourself. Self-care is just a way we start talking to ourselves about our needs, whether they're physical, whether they're emotional, whether they are, to do with our kind of physical well-being or to do with our emotional well-being. It's about us listening in to what's going on in our heads, to our inner dialogue. That is self-care. And so how it sort of comes out, how it expresses itself in terms of what actual activity you do is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that intention, that desire to connect again to yourself, and understand yourself a little bit better and understand your needs a little bit better. So how do we do it then? I have, alluded to this just now, but how do we do it? I have no time. We don't have time. We are very busy and we all still have our kids at home, and it becomes a real logistical challenge. It's not a question of time. We all have the same time, and we all have many moments throughout the day when we are not required to be like doing something with our kids or doing something for work. And I'll give you a very, very, again, simple example. We all have to go to the bathroom several times a day. And we tend to go on our own, although sometimes I'm sure we also get interrupted by our children. The mere intention of just using those moments to connect to ourselves, to do a simple kind of body scan like I have facilitated, like I led you on at the beginning of this presentation, can really help to just tune into our body and to simply take a few breaths. And a lot of people might think, but how is that going to change anything? It's a way to reestablish that dialogue with ourselves and to start paying attention to our bodies and to how much tension we carry around. So it does make a huge difference, particularly when we do it several times a day. So here I'm going to give you 3 very practical tips on how to actually do this, how to create a self-care habit in your life. The first one is to prioritize. And what I said before, it's not a question of time. We all have 24 hours a day, and many of them, we really should be sleeping. It's a question of what we do with our time, right? And so how do we prioritize? And the key here is to understand that you can't get to where you don't know that you want to go, which is why I call it the emotional lighthouse. So the most important question you can ask yourself every day is, how do I want to feel? How do I want to feel? And this makes a huge difference in terms of prioritizing certain activities over others. And a lot of these activities you might not even think of as self-care activities, because say one day you might wake up and think, I really need to feel productive. Like I want to feel productive. I'm feeling, I'm raring to go. I want to get things done. In that case, that day you might actually see finishing off certain projects, whether they be for work or at home, as a form of self-care, because doing that is actually enabling you to feel how you want to feel that day, which is productive. But the important thing here is that it's not an obligation. It's not stress. It's not stress inducing. It's not stress creating, because it doesn't come from a sense of obligation of I need to do this. Of course, we all need to do stuff for work. I'm not saying that, but from a self-care point of view, there will be days when you decide, I want to feel like I've achieved something and I'm going to go and clear up my garage. Well, that's great. That is actually self-care. Another day you might feel like I'm exhausted, and what I really need and how I want to feel is totally blissed out. I want to feel relaxed and chilled. And in that case, your self-care activities, even if it's literally one or two, will be very, very different. And it might be something like, whilst your kids are, playing on the Wii or on the iPad, or maybe, happily engaged otherwise, it might be to just close your eyes for 5 minutes and lie down, or it might just be to just do a few breathing, just conscious breathings, or it might be cooking if you find that relaxing, that and maybe cooking with some music, that might be self-care. So the really important thing is to adjust your expectations, to not think that self-care means going on a day spa, for 6 hours, which would be lovely if we could do it, but we can't right now. And we don't have to be able to take care of ourselves. The second one is this, adjust the expectations and make sure that whatever it is that you're doing, you're fitting it around your life and not the other way around. Excuse me. So the point is not to feel the obligation to meditate for 45 minutes every day. If meditation is not your cup of tea, or if you're not interested, or if you know that, you're not very good at sitting down still for long periods of time, don't go that way. The first important thing to be able to adjust your self-care routine is to know yourself better. Know what works for you, what you like, what you enjoy, and go there, start with that. And then accept that it's not going to be perfect, that it's probably not going to be the way you envisioned it. So I personally do meditate, and I know and I accept that there are many times when I'm sitting down trying to meditate and my son will come in and he will either ask me a question, or he might sit next to me and start stroking my hair, which is very lovely, but it is a distraction. So what I try to do is accept that that's going to happen, and also adapt. Sometimes I ask him, do you want to do some breathing exercises with me? Or I say to him, do you want to just sit here with me and be quiet? And then when you're done, you can just leave. And I make that a part of my meditation, right? So it could be around exercising, a lot of us would love to be able to go back to a gym and have a good hour to ourselves to do our workouts. If we're not in a position to do that, you can still have a workout. You can do it at home. You can do it with your kids or without your kids, depending on, whether you can bring them into it. You can modify it to suit you and your life right now, rather than try to have your life be, different. It's not. It is what it is. So starting from what you need, but also from how your life is right now, is a much surer way to get to a sense that this is working for you and that it's not an obligation or a chore. And then finally, the self-care minimum. It is a very, very simple concept. So it is, what is my minimum self-care that I am willing to do every day? And it can change. You might, you know, one week you might say, I am going to get up 15 minutes early and go for a walk, or have a cup of coffee in, you know, in my kitchen when everyone in the house is still sleeping. Or it might be something as basic, which literally takes you no time, as saying, I am going to make sure every night before I go to sleep, before I get into bed, or once I'm already in bed, to do a few, you know, conscious breaths and to just kind of scan my body and just see how I'm feeling. That might be it. So it's a minimum. It's something that you're willing to do for yourself every day. And I personally would also encourage you to, at a minimum, but be kind to yourself. So even if there's only one thing you do and one thing you take away from this presentation, apart from the importance of self-care, is to mind your inner dialogue. We are very self-critical, especially as parents, and especially when our kids have special needs. We judge ourselves, we criticize ourselves, we say we haven't done this and we haven't done that, and you know, this ongoing sort of commentary on all the things we haven't done today and all the things that should have happened and didn't happen, right? So just being mindful of that and seeing it as a dialogue and not getting sucked into it, being kind to ourselves, that as a minimum for self-care daily is already life-changing. You know, as we do it over the days and over the weeks and over the months, it begins to change that relationship with ourselves. So what happens when, yes, that's all very fine and well, and self-care is great, but what happens when I really want some peace and quiet and my kid is having a meltdown? You know, what about my needs? What about their needs? You know, what happens when my needs and their needs are actually incompatible in a particular situation? So what I've written here is that nothing happening in your life is a reason to abandon yourself. And although this may sound a bit melodramatic, the idea is, for instance, if your kid is having a crisis, if your kid really needs you, your role and your responsibility as a parent is to be there for them and to provide the kind of support that works best for them. However, this does not mean that you totally ignore your needs. So in that example, if your kid is having a meltdown and what you want to do is literally run away, you know, you're not going to run away, but you can pay attention to that desire to be alone, to that need, that emotional need to really be alone and to really nourish yourself and to really just be in a calm space. And you're going to attend to your child and to your child's needs, and you're going to give them the attention and the help that they need at that point. But having listened to yourself and having paid attention to yourself, you've already taken care of yourself. And you can, in a way, postpone meeting your need until a later point, when things have calmed down at home, when the meltdown is over, or when you go to the bathroom the next time. Then you can take a few breaths and you can say to yourself, you're okay, you know, I'm okay, it's fine, I'm on my own now, which is what I needed, you know. And even if that's only for 2 minutes, but the fact that you have listened to your needs is already self-care, and it is already a massive shift from what we normally do, which is to repress our needs and to ignore our emotional kind of states, you know, in order to meet our kids where they're at. What I'm saying here is it's not incompatible. You can do both, and you can just postpone your own stuff until later, but you don't have to ignore it. So to finish up with the presentation, I'm just going to give you 4 mindfulness practices, which I'm sure you've heard of before. They're all very, very simple. They don't require you to sit down and meditate or do anything unusual. The first one we did at the beginning of this presentation, it's to breathe. Breathing is the only automatic physiological process in our body that we can actually control, and it has physiological benefits. And so just breathing consciously just becoming aware of your breath. And when you are in an emotional state of like heightened sort of response, or when your stress response kicks in, to mindfully, to consciously slow down the breath. It helps you to connect with the body, and it helps to disarm the kind of the triggering, you know, the stress kind of response, which is responsible for a lot of our kind of reactive behavior. So it really, really helps, and it makes a difference. To do a 180, this is basically to stop focusing so much on what's happening outside. Yes, we have to. We are parents, and obviously we need to pay attention to what's happening around us. But to do that and turn the periscope around to look at ourselves and to understand how we're reacting to whatever it is that's happening, and to just be genuinely interested, to have some curiosity about how you're feeling about what's happening, you know, how your body is reacting. Just be more aware of your own inner experience of whatever is happening outside, because that really helps you to get you to know yourself better, and it also helps you to be able to meet your needs better. The third one is to focus on one thing. So multitasking truly doesn't work, and I know we all do it, and I struggle with it myself, but it doesn't work. Our brains are not very good at switching tracks. When we are trying to do too many things at once, we are not doing anything well, and we're not giving it our full attention. So to give your attention is the purest form of generosity. This obviously applies very, very much with our children. I know that we live in the real world, but it is truly not helpful for anyone to be on our phone trying to cook dinner and having a conversation with our kid, or trying to pay attention to what's going on with our kid. So just, I'm not saying don't make dinner. I'm saying, you know, just focus, even if it's literally 30 seconds, focus on your phone if you need to, and then leave the phone, and then focus on your child if you need to. And then once that's done, focus on your dinner or whatever else that you're doing. It really diminishes the load on our nervous system. We have just hugely heightened nervous systems because we're just trying to do too many things at the same time. And finally, a bit of gratitude. Be thankful for whatever you can be thankful. You know, you can always be thankful for your now, because it means that you're alive. But, you know, you can be thankful for all kinds of things. And the practice of actually thinking about what you can be thankful for is very, very beneficial emotionally and psychologically. And it's something that you can share with your kids as well. And kids understand this very, very naturally, you know. The simple things, you know, kids find all kinds of things exciting, and they can be thankful for them. And as parents, we can learn a lot from that natural ability of children. So I just wanted to let you know that I do have a downloadable free audio series on self-care, which goes a bit further into what we've talked about here. And you can get it off my website. Each audio is about 7 or 8 minutes, so it won't take too much of your time if you're interested in kind of delving a bit more deeply into this issue and into how to do it in your life. And that's it for me. I'm going to shut up now. And I would like to ask you, you know, to think about what is the one self-care practice or activity or intention that you can do every day, and to open it up for anyone who has any questions or any comments, or anyone who would like to share. And I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Maggie. It was very interesting. And I think we all need some time to self-care of ourselves. Do you have